Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Mr. Russell Dean, I see you out there.
Elizabeth, is that you?
It is.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm gonna I just saw your name on this agenda. I hadn't looked at it, and I'll stay out of your way. You know, it wouldn't be fair to me to, get in the middle of my childhood heroes issues here. So, I'll let you do your thing. Good luck.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's really good seeing you. Hope you're doing well.
Doing great. Thanks. You too.
All right.
Okay. It's 5 o'clock, and I see 4 out of the 5 committee members and Mr. Malinowski. So I will call this meeting to order. The first item on our, I guess we'll call the roll. Sorry. Miss Only, will you call the roll for committee members?
Yes, ma'am. Pugh.
Here.
Horatio.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
English. Newton.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Item 2A is our regular session on May 25th, 2021. Those minutes can be found on pages 7 through 10. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. Thank you. Any additions, deletions, changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I will ask Miss Only to call the roll.
Pugh.
Yes.
Horatio.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
English. Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks. Item 3 is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Newton.
it looks like maybe Mr. Brown was going to speak, so I will wait in case that was so.
Great. Mr. Brown, do you have any changes?
I do not.
Okay, great. Ms. Newton, did you have any suggested changes?
Well, I guess I have a question for the committee. So looking at our agenda items for action, items A and B, those were items that we had discussed in the budget meeting. And my impression when those were sent to committee was that we were going to have a broader conversation about recreation and recreation needs in Richland County. And so I don't want to derail our agenda. I guess I was a little surprised to see them separately, and I'm not sure what the best way is to address that conversation, but that's the conversation that I was anticipating having, and either way that I hope that we could have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. I think that we can, when we get to those items, discuss a motion regarding those items that would be appropriate to maybe address some of your concerns.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Any other, and I'm going to look for hands. Okay, Mr. Malinowski,
In similar fashion.
did you want to speak to the agenda?
Yeah, just what Councilwoman Newton was saying. I'm just surprised that these two items, which are some of the more recent items that have been brought to council's attention, take the number 1 and 2 spots on this agenda. When I see on the agenda, there are others that have been around for a lot longer time. I just think in the future, agendas need to be constructed based on the way they're there. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Malinowski, while you're here, I believe, was it discussed in rules and appointments regarding having dates, requesting dates on motions when they appear on our agendas?
We did mention that we wanted to see the maker of the motion and the date that the motion was initially made at council. However, that is something that has to, well, it has to be put into the rules unless we just as a council give it consent. We could bring it forward that way as a
Okay.
separate item if you'd like us to.
Great. I mean, I think it would be a great idea. I know you all are working hard on the rules, so yeah, and I very much support having those notations on our motions.
I'll make a note of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so we have discussed the agenda. Any further? I'm going to look for hands one more time. Okay, I don't see any further discussion on the agenda. Ms. Only, will you call the roll? Oh, sorry, did I get a motion for the agenda to approve it?
No, ma'am.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now it's been moved and seconded. Ms. Only, will you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English, and Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. Items for action. So items 4A and 4B have been mentioned when we discussed the agenda. I'll just read out item 4A from the Special Revenue Fund, hospitality tax, RC volleyball complex, new group seeking council funding in the amount of $3,950,000. That's pages 11 through 18 of our agenda. I'll just ask my colleagues, do we want to speak to these items separately, or do we want to speak to A and B together? Is there a preference?
I'd like to speak to them together because I think it's a broader topic of recreation in Richland County, not necessarily specific to these two entities at this moment.
Okay, so I'll just read out item B and then we can address these two pieces together. So item 4B is the Special Revenue Fund, hospitality tax, SC Kings Foundation, Next Level Sports Center, new group seeking council funding in the amount of $9.5 million. Though that item is pages 19 through 24 in our agenda. Okay, so with these items before us, is there discussion or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Newton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I stated earlier, my thoughts are that, and also echoing what Councilwoman Barron said, are that we need to have a broader conversation about recreation in Richland County, what our priorities are, what makes sense for a sports complex in general, and before we look at specific items that came to us from an outside party. My recommendation, and I won't make a motion at this time because I want to make sure that we have fulsome conversation, but my recommendation would be that we maybe have a work session and talk about this topic. There may be some pre-work that we need to do in collaboration with staff. What are our criteria? For example, one thing that's hugely important to me is not just the revenue that you bring in from sports tourism, but also that if we're investing our money, that there's a use for the public, for communities that desperately need recreation. I happen to know, I don't think it's been shared with council yet, but I know even the Richland County Recreation Commission actually commissioned a third-party study to look at recreation all across the county to identify gaps and identify opportunities. And that's a conversation that I hope that we could have, and maybe staff, whether they work in conjunction with RCRC or not, could maybe put together some parameters to help facilitate that conversation. But that is what I would love to see happen as a conversation before we discuss any specific opportunity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. I see Mr. Pugh next on my screen.
Yes, ma'am. But I would like to yield to my colleague, Councilwoman Barron, because I have a potential motion.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Barron, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. I couldn't agree with Ms. Newton even more. So I do think that we are having more conversation around the topic of recreational sports and its need in Richland County, and how it could definitely put Richland County on the map for a destination site. And I think that is wonderful. I think it was last week, Councilman Pugh and Mackey and myself, we participated in some focus group sessions led by Jeff Rubel and his team, looking at the 1,300 of acres of land that we own in Blythewood. And one of the discussion that we had, because we have a tract of land that's right there off of Blythewood Road that we want to develop first. And the conversation came up about recreational sports. And if that is something, if it's going to be a project that the county is going to take the lead on and fund, I would like to see us not necessarily look to outsource it, but to see how we can collaborate and partner, whether it is with RCRC. We last night we went to the board meeting. That same study came up. And so I think it may be quite a little bit premature for us to sign on to a particular organization without us doing our due diligence and digging further to see how we can maximize this moment that we are now presented with here in Richland County.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. Well said. Mr. Pugh?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. I would like to make a motion that we instruct staff to move forward with the due diligence of figuring out exactly what type of facility we need in Richland County, and schedule with the clerk's office to set up some work sessions with all stakeholders and those involved in the community to come together and figure out exactly what type of complex we need and location.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Newton.
Thank you. Mr. Pugh, as I understood your motion, it was to have staff come back to us and tell us what type of recreation facility we need. So I just wanted to have a little conversation about that. I guess from my perspective, I would see staff maybe coming. I feel like some of the criteria should come from council, because we would be directing them to tell us what kind of thing we need in absence of direction from council around priorities. So it starts with the presumption that we need one. And for the record, let me say, I do think we do, but I don't want to slow the process down, but that seems like a really mighty thing for them to chew without any council input. So I don't know if I'm trying to think of what a potential amendment to that motion would be. But I guess for me, I would love to see us as a body provide some strategic input and maybe have them come to us with options, with how it works, with implications, with criteria that we might want to consider, and then allow us to take a little more of the driver's seat in terms of what and where we would like to see things. I don't know if I'm being clear, so I'm going to pause.
Well said. Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's a substitute motion.
okay. Miss Barron, is your hand a second, or?
No,
would you like
no,
to
my
speak to
hand,
that?
my hand was to try to kind of craft it as Miss Newton was spinning it. So yeah, I think that it's kind of if we take, I'd like to attempt to making a friendly amendment to Mr. Pugh's motion, and that is to have work sessions, have council to have work sessions to identify priorities for our recreational needs, then have staff to take those priorities in bringing something back to us. I don't know what that thing is there. Trying to, it's there. It's
Madam Chair, may I respond, since Ms. Barron is addressing my point, trying to help me out a little bit?
Yes. And then I see Miss Mackey and Mr. Livingston. So yes.
Sure. If you're okay, Ms. Barron, what I would say is that we direct staff to organize a work session to discuss recreation league opportunities in Richland County, including presenting background information around, I have no idea, around opportunities and information and criteria that we may want to consider as we evaluate such recreational facilities in Richland County. But take out half the words. That's my idea. That's my substitute motion that I'm offering if someone will accept it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Great. I just want to, okay, so Miss Mackey. So that's been moved and seconded as a secondary motion, and now I'm recognizing Miss Mackey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to kind of clarify, because we're saying staff, I did not hear any type of collaboration with Richland County Recreation Commission, who is responsible for executing a lot of the recreation needs for our community. So I wanted to just point that out. Was there any desire for our staff to actually collaborate with RCRC in any of their research?
I would hope that they would be invited as stakeholders to these meetings. And I would hope that staff would also invite any other pertinent entities, such as some of these leagues that would be the users of the space. I'll go ahead and recognize Mr. Livingston before we speak to, before we address staff.
As the maker.
Yes, Ms. Newton, go ahead.
My concern
sorry.
is I don't want us to get too deep into talking about council making decisions about recreational needs in Richland County. Keep in mind now, you know, the Recreation Commission and director job is to provide those recreational needs for Richland County. Now, I thought what we were primarily looking at is a destination site for Richland County, something that can draw tourism and folks to our community and provide some recreation as a result for local persons within our community. So I would rather the staff focus on this whole idea of a destination site for Richland County, and not get too much into the weeds of recreation in general in Richland County. For this particular case, doesn't mean that, you know, our liaisons with Recreation Commission doesn't meet with them and talk about specific needs at all our different parks and different type of recreation initiatives. But I thought our focus was going to be primarily on looking at some type of destination site and not lose sight of where we're going with that, as opposed to getting too confused and getting too engaged in too much into recreation. So I would like the motion to center at least mostly around workshops dealing with some major destination site.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Ms. Newton, did you want to, I know you wanted to respond earlier.
Oh, sure. And I guess I would say, Mr. Livingston, that I concur about the destination aspect of this. And so my focus on recreation needs wasn't about, let's talk about every little park, but as you look at travel tourism, there are opportunities was the word that I used, and there are needs and market needs and that type of thing. So from my perspective as the maker of the motion, my intent is aligned with yours. However, to answer Ms. Mackey's point, from my perspective, with us directing staff to come back to us with opportunities and criteria, that does not in any way preclude conversation with the Recreation Commission. In fact, I hope that we would have it. Recreation Commission has someone who is expert in sports. I am not an expert in sports, so I hope that we would get their expertise and feedback, but I would leave it to staff to drive the process of gathering information and driving the process of presenting and framing some of those questions for us, but certainly not precluding them collaborating with RCRC, and I hope that they would. That would be my thought. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And that's exactly what I support too, so good.
Okay. So are we Mr. Pugh?
I'm good, Madam Chair.
Okay. And Mr. Livingston, your hand is still up. Is that just from before? Do you want to
No,
speak
I
again?
just didn't take it down.
Okay, great. I wanted to check in with staff and see if they are clear on what the motion and the instructions are.
Yes, ma'am. Let me turn my video on here for you. So yes, ma'am, I believe I am aware and clear on what the motion is. I believe the understanding is that staff is going to work with council to develop priorities, listening to what council says, give priorities in work sessions that we'll have with council. In addition to that, we will work with other partners who deal with sports, tourism, and that type of thing, including our RCRC, and there are several others out there as well. And that some of those things that we look at associated with the priorities that are established by council in developing potential destinations and opportunities that we will help communicate some of those issues and criteria that the council should consider in determining what may be the best site or sites or opportunities for those destination opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for the upgrade.
Sorry.
I don't know I don't know if that's good or bad or indifferent, so I'm just gonna smile.
Okay, Mr. Brown, thank you for that recap. Now I've got myself turned around. Okay, so we have a motion, 1 second. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. I was going to look for input from committee members on and staff to when do we think these workshops could happen? What month do we think these workshops could probably happen, or work sessions rather? Ms. Newton, you have your hand raised.
I do, and I promise I won't say anything else about this item after this.
Okay.
I will say, as we are evaluating timing, that we are in a situation where there are also state funds that could potentially support us with this effort. And I know that I've had a conversation with a state senator who has said, in a perfect world, that if we were to come back, say in August with some recommendations, broad strokes, not 50-page plans necessarily, that those might be things that we could pursue in the state budget. So I know that we have a lot on our plates, but if there were a timeline that were sooner rather than later, I think it could be advantageous to the county. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Brown, do you think we can get some energy behind this and maybe have a work session as early as sometime in July?
Yes, ma'am. I think we can. Certainly what I'll do is I will try to be considerate of the council's agenda. I do understand you have a number of other meetings and commitments that are happening, but I have no issue working with my team to try to facilitate those additional work sessions during those dates and times. So just wanted to let you know that I'll try to be mindful of your calendar, but we are certainly willing and able to adjust our calendars accordingly.
Okay, great. So our Mr. Livingston, the real Mr. Livingston.
Madam Chair, I certainly agree. The sooner the better, so we can access, take advantage of some possible opportunities. That's all I want to say.
Great.
Just sooner
Okay.
better.
Thank you. I feel like we are all on the same page, but I will call for a vote so we can get that on record.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Pugh.
could we get the maker of the motion to restate the motion again?
I thought we were friends, Mr. Pugh. Now, I don't know. Okay. Move to direct staff to organize a work session to evaluate opportunities for destination sports tourism in Richland County, to include opportunities and criteria to consider for evaluation. Staff should partner with any groups necessary to gather information for said workshop. But you might be off my Christmas card list.
You'll figure out how to get back on it before then, right?
Yes, sir. I got 6 months.
We got months. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Newton, for restating. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for this motion?
You don't need
Ma'am Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. Item 4C is move to name June as Pride Month in Richland County. That is a one-page resolution that I was not in our packets, but was circulated by email by me. I'm happy to read out parts of it. I'm happy to address any suggestions. Mr. Pugh?
Yes, Madam Chair, point of order, did we cover item 4A, or did we just skip to 4B and have that discussion, or were both included in discussion?
We kind of addressed both of those at the same time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's on to 4C. Okay. And if I don't have any on 4C, if I don't see any hands, I'll just move to approve this item to recommend favorably to full council.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Looking for hands. Hearing none, I'll ask only to call the roll.
Ma'am Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Okay.
Newton.
Thank you all. That brings us to item 4D. Okay. Move to authorize the county attorney to take any and all necessary actions, including condemnation proceedings, to acquire ownership of the roadway parcels of Aiken Hunt Circle and Oak Brook Drive that are currently not in the county's road maintenance system program. These parcels are located in the Wildwood subdivision, and the current owner has been non-responsive to prior requests by the Department of Public Works to acquire the roadway parcels. This item is pages 25 through 50 of our packets. And Ms. Mackey is the maker of the motion and on our call. So I'll just ask Ms. Mackey, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you would like to speak to this first, I'd be happy for you to do so.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. This was previously on the agenda, and I think we had a brief discussion about the roads listed were currently not considered, as we would say, county-owned roads, and all the other roads surrounding were taken in by the county, and these were left off of the list. And the motion was to allow county attorney and staff to move forward with the condemnation process. In the packet, there's a map of said roads as well as historical information as far as Public Works doing their research and, you know, making the attempts to contact the owner, and that has not, there's been no results, nothing's happened from that. So that information is in there as well. And then Attorney McLean is on the call if there's additional questions about what that process would look like from the attorney's side.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mackey.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any council members. Ms. Newton, I do see your hand now.
Indeed. I have 2 questions for staff. And one question is related to this road specifically, and then the other question is related to the ordinance. So my first question was, as it looks at council inquiry here, it talks about adding roads to the county maintenance program to ensure that the process is fair and equitable. And I guess, again, I know I'm boring about this, but there are so many roads that need to be repaired in the county. I want to understand, when we accept these roads into our inventory, how does that work in terms of other roads that need repair that may have been on the list previously? So that's my first question. And then I have a secondary question.
Okay. So Mr. Maloney, or would someone from staff like to speak to that? Sorry, Director Maloney.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We would intend to, unless County Council would supersede that, but we would intend to look at them once they're in the county system, as all roads are, not to hold them back for the maintenance that they need. It was about 2 to 3 months ago we performed emergency maintenance because of large potholes in the road that was looking at the public health, welfare, and safety as far as the driving condition of it. And that seems to have, put the patch, if you will, on the road. But when it's time to do a mill and fill, we would look at these as any other road, looking at its condition index and putting it on the list based on that.
Okay. And then
Thank you.
my secondary question is really a general question that I'm bringing up because we're discussing the ordinance here. If you look under that same section of council inquiry number 1, it talks about how we prioritize the funding of roads, specifically that we distribute funds based on the length of a district compared to the county. So before I ask this question, I do have another question. Mr. Maloney, is that the general length of the county, or is it only the length of paved roads?
That is paved roads. So there's a section of the ordinance on paved roads, and it has us do it this way. There's, for paving dirt roads, there's a similar pro rata for that, but in a different part.
Sure. And I guess here's my concern, and this, I don't want to belabor this motion to talk about it, but we are talking about the ordinance now. To me, I understand why we have that system, but I think it creates inherent unfairness because it's saying the more paved roads you have, the sooner you'll get maintenance on your paved roads. But there are districts in the county, and mine is one of them, and 10 is another, that have an overabundance of unpaved roads, which in some cases means our paved roads are getting even more traffic, but we will forever be at a situation where we will be at lower priorities to fix those roads based on the fact that we don't have a lot of paved roads. So I think it creates this circle. And again, it gets tricky because all of our districts are so different. Ms. Teracio's district may not have one single unpaved road. And so it just means that we will forever be at the bottom of the list. And so I don't know if it's that it requires a motion for me to bring it a different time for us to evaluate that. But I would just love to see, are there some additional options where we can look at that? Because again, from my perspective, it creates some structural unfairness in terms of how we look at roads that also need maintenance, because we'll always be at the bottom. So thank you, Mr. Maloney, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if I'm missing information in my agenda packet, because while the agenda itself said this item is pages 25 to 50, my pages only go 25 to 32, and then it starts in with your next item, affordable housing. So am I missing some information here? Do y'all have
I think you might be. What page does your affordable housing start on? Does it start on 51?
No, it starts on 33.
Oh,
My agenda is that way as well.
Mine too.
oh no. Am I the only one that got the full agenda? Is anyone else missing pages? Miss English?
No, I wasn't talking about the pages, but I wanted to.
Well, could I, before we start, Ms. English, excuse me, if somebody could just send me the missing pages in so I can know what we're talking about when we get down to this next time. Thank you.
Great. And just for clarity, your last page of this item was, did you say 39?
Page 32.
32. Okay,
Okay.
so you need pages 33 through
50.
50. Okay.
Need them as well.
I
Okay.
think I did too.
One comment on the page numbers.
Ms. Newton?
I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Barron. I was just going to say that it goes up to 32, but the affordable housing briefing in my document starts on page 33. So if you just sent us 32 to 50, you could potentially repeat what we already have, but not provide us what is missing.
That's correct.
Mhm.
Okay. Maybe then the answer is just to have all of the council members resent the full pack. I got the full packet, and I apologize. I didn't know anybody that others did not.
I'm missing pages too, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, me as well.
Okay. Could I guess the clerk's office please send out the full packet to everyone?
I'll resend it.
Sorry, Ms. Myers. Mm-hmm.
It appears there may have been a mistype on the page numbers. The correct information was included. It was just the agenda briefing, which should not have gone through page 50. That may have been a mistype on the number of pages.
Oh, okay. Then let's see. Maybe we could just look and see on my last page of this item. The last page starts out with a bullet point and then issues, and then down at the bottom is priority steps. Maybe if council members could look at their packet and see if they got.
The last page for this item should be on page 32.
Okay. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I think this might have been my mistake. I bundled up two pieces together. Okay, so then the last one should be that letter from to Mr. Joe Gladney of Sparkleberry Associates. Is that what everybody else has? Okay. I guess the answer, Ms. Newton, would be to have fewer pages in our agenda, and then we might not go through this. What do you think?
You're asking me, I support that, but can I also say, just because the reason I raised my hand is it's been troubling for a long time. When we have this blue bar across the bottom of our agenda, and I'm sorry to get into the weeds, but there are many times when I can't read the page number at all. And I had to work so hard to figure out that it didn't correspond because I just can't see them. So I don't know if we have to have the bar. I don't know if our software will allow us to move the page numbers, but this is not the first or the 15th or the 20th time that it's been hard to read page numbers. And so it would just be fantastic if we could make that problem go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agreed. That would make it easier. I agree. Okay, now, Miss English, I think you had something to say that was not about page numbers.
Yeah, I did. I just want to say I concur with Miss Newton when it comes to the roads. And I know we spoke earlier in the transportation ad hoc meeting about this, just what the priorities are and how are those prioritized. And we're going to have a session, well, not a session, but I will be speaking with staff offline regarding this because like we said, in 10 and 11, we seem to be the redheaded stepchild. So just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss English. And then Miss Mackey.
Sorry, I just want to confirm that what is in the packet is all of the information. So I just want to make sure that was clear so nobody thought there was information lingering. This is all the information.
Okay. Yes, I believe it is. There are pages that have the copy of the front of the envelope. And then there are copies of the letters that were sent.
Correct. And on
then
page,
there's the map and the agenda briefing. So I see all of those items before me.
okay, great. And I was gonna say on page 26 for Council Inquiry 4, there is the kind of steps from Attorney McLean that details what her next steps would be.
Right. Okay, and then I just have one question, and I don't know if this was established or not, but you know, the history of this is that other roads were brought into the county system, but these kind of couple were not. And I just I wonder if there were, well, maybe I have two questions. I wonder if there's a reason that these were not brought in. Was it just sheer number? Is there some other history that these were not brought in when the others around it were?
And Chair, this is Director Maloney. We found no reason. It appeared to be built to standards and as all the roads around it were. So it dates back to 31 years ago. So we could not find a specific to that other than oversight.
Okay. And then my other question is, because you all have had to do some emergency repair on this, even though they are not technically our roads yet, is there any, I would assume that if we keep having to do some of these emergency repairs, we really want to consider, and maybe Ms. McLean has spoken to this or will speak to this, just liability for us going in and patching roads that are not county roads. And I guess the question is there liability that we need to consider in these being kind of abandoned roads that we are going in to fix just for public safety, and they're not technically our roads yet.
Ms. Tracy?
Yes.
So I'm going to give you a short answer as we're in open session. And the shorter answer is we have an ordinance that would allow us to do this on a limited basis.
Okay.
Beyond that, I'd be glad to give you a written response or go in executive session, but it's a good question. Good question. But we have an ordinance that will allow us to kind of go out and do what we need to on emergency repairs as a stopgap measure.
Okay, great. Well, that's very helpful. But I'm assuming that we don't want to continue doing this forever.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Newton, I see your hand is up.
Quick question, and I'll just assure my colleague, Councilwoman Mackey, that I am going to vote yes on this. I just have a lot of questions about things. And this question is for staff. I'm really just curious, looking at this briefing document oftentimes with our briefing documents, there's a fiduciary part that talks about budgeting and what it's going to cost and if it's budgeted, et cetera. Certainly, I understand that there are some unknowns for costs because we have to do condemnation, et cetera. I was just wondering, is that something that should be part of our briefing document?
This, and looking at this is Director Maloney, looking at the road segment and the, miles of road that we are maintaining. This is a very small amount of road of about 1,000 feet. It's a very small amount of road maintenance to add into our 600-mile system. So I would just put it at that this is a small take.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. And I guess I'll just say for my question is that I can have my answer to offline, more for staff about consistency with our briefing documents. And if that fiduciary part is something that should be included in our briefing documents moving forward, can absolutely take any additional information offline. Thanks.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Committee Chair Teresia, may I recognize?
Yes, Ms. Myers.
Councilmember Newton, typically that information would be included. We provided this addendum briefing to answer preliminary questions about this particular item, but we were told to bring it back for action, so we did not prepare additional briefing based upon the discussion. I apologize for that. We will ensure that it is included in all future briefings.
No problem, just trying to understand and be consistent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. It looks like I am out of hands. So that means I will call for the vote. Ms. Only? Oh, wait, did we have a
No, ma'am.
You're muted.
Sorry, is there a motion on this item? Thank you, Ms. Barron.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I will make a motion, and I will make a motion I gotta read it. I think I'll pause for a moment, or maybe I won't make a motion right this moment.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
It's that simple, huh?
You can do it that way.
Second.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for approval of 4D?
You,
Yes.
Teresia,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Moving right along, and I'm just having to look at time and what we have left. So item 4E is move to evaluate affordable housing options to include the option of establishing an affordable housing trust fund for Richland County as a benefit to the public. For this one, I would like for this item to go into a work session as well. And I'll pause and get some feedback from my colleagues on this item. I'm happy to make a motion, but I also want to get input from you all as to what you would like to see. All right, I'm looking for hands. I'm not seeing any hands. I'll just go ahead and move to have staff create a work session and present to council some proposed ordinances, policies, and possibly funding mechanisms for supporting affordable, attainable, accessible housing in Richland County, and to consult with some of the members of the Columbia Affordable Housing Task Force to glean the outcomes of those meetings.
Second.
I don't know if okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I'm looking for hands. Ms. Newton?
Yes, sorry. So listening to your motion, it was directing staff to come to us with recommendations and possible draft ordinances and to consult with the other group. I guess I certainly support the idea of a work session, but from my perspective, as I read the document, staff has already looked at priorities. They did a plan. They did next steps that make sense. But what they asked for was guidance and priorities from council. So I absolutely support the work session on this topic. I guess I just disagree with the way that you worded it. I would more, if I were to have a substitute motion or amend your motion, it would be to ask staff to present their recommendations, because they already exist, on affordable housing to council, so that we can provide additional guidance and priorities and determine how to move forward.
I would accept that. Would the seconder of the motion accept that?
I accept.
Fantastic. I love when we work together. Okay, I'm looking for more hands, and I don't see, Ms. Newton, your hand is still up. Do you still want to speak to that? No, okay. Great. We can move right along. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for E?
Hugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton. Motion passes.
And I'll just say, I know we didn't put it in the motion to give staff a time frame, but this does not also have to be. I would assume that we're not going to have this also in July. This can be after July.
Aren't we having, August is off, right?
It kind of. It's kind of off. Okay.
Tell y'all.
All right. Okay, so that brings us to looking at time. Okay, item 4E, amend the county's current ordinance in order to allow lighting on Broad River Road. So that is pages 133 to 231 in our agenda packet for today. Do we have comments or a motion? Mr. Pugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move that we table this item until we figure out if this is going to fit into the new improvement plans that are coming about on the Broad River Road area.
Great. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Discussion. Ms. English, and I see your hand, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I just like to say, and I know we're tabling this, but I got a lot of places in the Lower Richland area that need some lighting, a whole lot. I've driven down some real dark roads. I mean, really dark roads. Not only are they dark, but they're dirt roads. So I just needed to say that and share that with staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. English. I hear you. And Mr. Brown.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to communicate, when you look at your agenda, I just realized it myself. It looks like the letter E is listed twice. So when you table this item, when you discuss this item, if maybe you could refer to the title of the item so that we won't get it confused for the record in future times. Thank you.
Thank you for catching that, Mr. Brown. Great. So would the maker of the motion just like to repeat the motion for clarity?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to table the item of amending the county's current ordinance in order to allow lighting on Broad River Road until we find out whether or not the new improvements will affect this ordinance.
Thank you. All right, so that's just a repetition of the motion. I don't see any further hands on this item, so I will ask Ms. Only to call the roll for tabling this item as stated.
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. We probably need a pretty good discussion on the next item, which I won't go by letters. I'll just name it out. The adoption of the solid waste management plan, which is pages 232 through 325. And I guess, and then there will be a separate item for a municipal solid waste management collections contract. So I will look for Miss English. Did you want to speak to this item?
No, I'm moved to table. It is a lot. It encompasses a lot. And a lot I don't understand for discussion that we have right now. So that's the only thing, because we don't have the time to discuss this. So I move to defer that or table it until we have appropriate time to discuss.
Okay. Would you like to defer that to our next meeting?
Chair, I have a question for clarification.
Yes, Mr. Livingston.
Let's make sure we hear from staff about the urgency of this matter, because of contracts and other things. I'm not sure what it might impact or whatever.
Good idea. Staff, could you give us some information on the urgency of this item?
This is Director Maloney. I would say the next item is urgent. This item is less urgent. So we could table this for a month.
Okay. So I believe that what we really want to do is defer until the next development and services meeting.
Yes.
Is that okay? So that's the motion. Is there a second for that deferral? Okay, great. And then no discussion on deferral. Ms. Only, will you call the roll?
Hugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right. We now go to the last item for action on the agenda, which is the municipal solid waste management collections contract. That's pages 326 through 330 of our agenda. And I'm going to look for Mr. Livingston. Do you still have your hand up on this item?
No, that's what I was most concerned about. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
So for this item, Ms. Newton.
Really quickly, when staff addresses this documentation before us, by approving this motion, would adopt the solid waste management plan that we just deferred conversation on. So maybe when staff addresses this, they could talk about the parts that we really need to and are able to approve today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Director Maloney, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, ma'am. And that's a good point that Councilmember Newton mentioned. We have these items that could be taken a la carte. We have the adoption of the solid waste management plan as a recommendation here, not necessarily an approved motion. And then approval of the rewrite of Chapter 12, which we're working on and will be bringing in separately for a future committee meeting. The items that really hit our work session follow that. So putting reasonable limits on yard waste, requiring yard waste picked up weekly, delegate, and then all the way down to extending curbside collection contract term from 5 years to 3 years plus 2 one-year extensions, all hit on the items we talked about in our council work session. And you could look at these and say, well, we would like to approve this, but not that. So I would suggest if it pleases the committee to take those items, and you could potentially vote on them one at a time. So it's up to you.
Okay. Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would like to know from Director Maloney is the way these things are written. Yes, we had a work session and there were maybe some suggestions provided to us. There were also comments or suggestions from council members present. Possibly there's public input on some of this, but will this come back to the committee to review all these items that you're talking about? Because it says create meaningful penalties. Certainly, I would think we'd want to see them before we approve them. Limit bulk items, recycling program, all these use of the automated collection trucks. We don't have any cost or anything in there or how it will actually work. It was a work session that gave us ideas, but there was nothing definitive decided at that work session. So I'm hoping what you're saying is once you do all this, you're going to bring it back to the committee for a final review.
Yes, sir. What we would like to do is take these to an RFP process for proposals. And what we would be reviewing at that point, that would be really where the cost hits is what do we get from the contractors based on that. You know, otherwise it is, you know, it's an estimate with each item. But if there's questions on any particular one, we certainly are here to answer those.
Well, there's no time tonight for it, so I'll let someone else on the committee speak. Thank you.
Okay. I see Miss Newton again.
Yes, I will ask no questions in the A&F meeting. Regarding this, Mr. Maloney, and the 3 minutes we have left, can you tell me what the time urgency is so that I understand it? So we did have a work session. There's some items in here that I'm not comfortable with, but if it's time sensitive, I would be willing to vote to move it to council where we would have a more fulsome discussion. But I just want to understand, if we say yes, what happens next and what do you need? But I do still have concerns about some of these vaguer items.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it would be getting it to council. We would have the remaining council sessions before August. And should there be a requirement for that, but then we would like to in August actually have those RFPs go out with the basis of these items in it.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have another DNS committee meeting before the final council meeting in July?
We should have one. I'm just going to go to my calendar and look. Or staff can chime in. I don't see one on the 20th.
Look at the 27th.
Is it on the 27th?
Thought it was.
I see, no, we have rules and appointments on the 13th, but not other committee meetings. Did we schedule them on a Thursday? I don't see them.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Myers.
According to the calendar published on the website, the next meeting will be July 27th.
July 27th. Director Maloney, if this is deferred until July 27th, and we put this maybe first item on our committee agenda, could that work for your timeline?
Would we have a council meeting before council leaves in August? Following that, Ms. Meyer.
Ms. Myers, can you answer that so I don't have to flip through my calendar again?
Yes, ma'am. The next meeting is August 31st. Committee meeting.
You said August 31st?
Yes, ma'am.
So then that would be kind of too late. Yes.
I move to forward this item to council for discussion and direct staff to provide additional details on these recommendations at that meeting.
Thank you. So we'll move it forward without a recommendation from council or from the committee. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? Seeing as it's 6 o'clock.
So where is anticipation for this to come before council?
Yeah, we would send it without a recommendation, Mr. Chair.
With anticipation that it will come in on the 27th meeting?
That it would come, I guess, on the next council meeting.
It's July 13th.
That'd be the 13th, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Well, I guess I would ask Mr. Maloney, again, some of these items are very vague. There will be more specific questions from your perspective. Is the 13th or the 27th going to be better for your time frame?
You talking in July, both of those dates?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. The 13th would be ample time to provide more information.
Okay, then the 13th, Madam Chair.
So good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and ask Ms. Only to call the vote for this deferral, or sorry, for this recommendation or
Sorry, really quick, Madam Chair, I apologize. I'd like to just amend that motion that it's to move this forward without recommendation, but removing the adoption of the solid waste management plan.
Okay. And is the seconder of the motion okay with that?
That was
you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for this item?
Yes, ma'am. Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Thank you. Newton.
No, to keep it off the consent agenda.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The last item, or the item 5, is pending analysis, no action required. So we can all just study that one. Item 6 is adjournment.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And we can do a quick roll call vote, or we can just say
Aye.
aye.
All right.
All right.